You're listening to the Real Estate Runway podcast, powered by Quattro Capital, where we are all about alternative business and investment strategies to help you amplify life and maximize wealth. Here's your host, the recovering engineer turned multifamily investor, Chad Sutton.
All right, Real Estate Runway family. Welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Runway podcast. I'm your host, Chad Sutton. We are powered by Quattro Capital here at Real Estate Runway. I'm here today for take two. You didn't see take one because we lost it, sad of us, with Mr. Alex Olson of Xchange CRE. This is a pretty sought after company who has actually kind of blended the model of broker and 1031 advisor relationship. And I'm really excited to get into it because it really can give us a pretty good, it's really a good service that they're providing to all of us who are trying to A, minimize taxes, and B, keep finding good properties. So Alex, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. I mean, it's good to be back talking with you. It's always good to get back together and, just see how things changed in even a short amount of time.
Exactly. We've all undergone a little bit of differences in the market since we talked last, and I have to give us a little credit. We didn't lose the episode, but we had a programmatic problem, and so unfortunately, here we are again. But second time is better, so you, the listeners, get to benefit from that. So, Alex, let's get into your background a little bit. Tell me a little bit about where you came from and end at why Xchange CRE, and then we'll talk about what the company does a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur at heart, like most everybody in real estate is or should be, unless maybe you kind of grew up into it. But with that said, I mean, I started off in a career in consumer finance. I was actually doing some graphic design work and spent about 15 years doing that. And in the middle of that, always looking for something new, always looking for a new job, always looking for a side hustle. I had some side hustles that produced a little bit of income here and there, and then kind of fell into real estate where we built our dream house. My wife and I did. We both had good paying jobs and saved all of our money throughout our entire career and built our dream house. And, through that process, of course, you always know about financing homes because you probably bought a home before, but doing a construction loan is quite a bit different where you're doing draw schedules.
Yes, it is.
Contractors. It's quite a bit different, right? So you're working with contractors and banks and all that kind of stuff. And so through that process, we did a really good job of building our house. We'd produced a lot of equity after we had closed. It was worth quite a bit more than what we paid for it, right, to build. And so immediately took out a home equity line of credit and bought a couple of investment properties in high economic producing areas of Kansas City. I had read books and books and books about real estate, never done it before, but I said, heck, why not? Let's go into it. Let's do it. I'm always looking for a side hustle. So I did that and continued to always look for a different job. And, I met a mentor, and I met a mentor because I was very persistent. I was trying to buy his house as an investment property, one of his houses. And he's like, wow, you're really persistent. Let's go ahead and meet up. And I was like, sure, why not? What could it hurt? Hopefully he sells his house to me. He ended up not selling the house, but he became a mentor. He said, hey, look, man, you're good at hustling. You know kind of what you're doing. You kind of know some good numbers, etc. Why don't you go and get your real estate license? I said, well, that sounds silly because I don't want to sell single family homes. And he's like, no, I'm talking about multifamily investment properties. And I said, that sounds pretty good. And so I actually went out and got my license within a month or so, and was recruited by Logan Freeman, who I know you know. I had a brokerage firm. We both had a strong passion for working with buyers. We have a lot of similar passions, but strong passion working with buyers. Strong passion for the 1031 exchange and how it can be a serious wealth building tool. And then we ended up starting a brokerage together, which is Xchange CRE, which is our focus is 1031 exchange buyers coming into the Kansas City marketplace. And it is a lot of fun and it keeps us pretty dang busy.
And for those who remember, we had Logan back on the show at episode 52. So roll back and check his episode out. He was awesome to talk to as well. So thank you for going into the business a little bit, Alex. And, you kind of, it's interesting hearing your experience and you're right. Construction loans are a little bit of a different animal than what we most have dealt with. But man, if I can just unpack a lesson right there for the audience, I mean, you got a mentor, out of it just by being either persistent or pain in the ass. I don't know what you would call it, right? But
Oh,
a little bit of both, right? The guy saw you had hustle, so I can't gloss over that. So anyway, so you're partnered with Logan now, and you have this company, Xchange CRE. Let's talk a little bit about what Xchange CRE does for its clients, and then we'll talk about, I think, maybe why that's important, because often you don't find this kind of a package together. So it's really why I wanted to have you on the show. So tell me a little more about Xchange CRE and what exactly y'all are providing as a service.
yeah. So Exchange CRE is a commercial real estate brokerage firm where, in one sense, we're a very traditional brokerage firm in that we make our money by taking a commission from a seller who's selling a property. However, what we do is we go out and we've created an off-market marketplace for multifamily properties and triple net lease properties. And with that, we then also go out and help 1031 exchange clients, meaning they have a deadline, they're on a 1031 exchange deadline. They need to find a property to buy. And through our cold calling, through our warm calling, through relationships, we, in a sense, match up these 1031 exchange clients with a property that's going to meet their return requirements. And we help walk them through the entire process, right? We find a lender for them, a local lender. We help curate property managers and attorneys and insurance and also your tradesmen, all those kind of different pieces to it. And, we really just kind of help get them comfortable in the market, whether they're local or not, with their new property. It's kind of a scary thing for a lot of people to do, which is, hey, do I really need to and want to go through the hassle of a 1031 exchange? And we really try and make it more of a white glove service to get properties over the finish line for them.
Yeah, that's pretty great. And so, to break all that down, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's a common thing to have a team who is specializing in helping someone who is in a 1031 exchange, find the Kansas City market, right? Because you do have a pretty robust growth market that is anyone would be happy to invest there, I think, if they just knew the numbers, and actually matching individuals with ticking time bomb funds that, where that bomb is taxes if you don't hit the deadline, helping them find good and quality properties, and even helping set up a team locally. Did I understand that part right?
Yeah, exactly. And to answer your first part of the question, no, there's not a lot of companies that are doing that. A lot of brokerage firms that do that really focus on the buyer's side. This is a buyer's representation. Occasionally we're a transaction broker, but rarely do we represent the seller. Our goal is to be a buyer-focused agency. And in the, we'll call it $1 to $10 million price range, maybe 15 as well, $1 to $15 million price range, there's not a lot of brokers out there that actually focus on buyers. Everybody knows listing agents are all great people. They do their thing and act appropriately, but you can tell their focus is always on their client, which mine is too, their client, which is the seller. But, with ours, it's like, hey, look, I've got some off-market deals for you. I don't know if they're going to buy or if they're going to sell or what they're going to do. But our power there is nobody else is really looking at these except for our clients. And let's make some offers. Let's start negotiating on your behalf. There's no harm, no foul on continuing the dialogue with sellers. Then all the other white glove service, right? You need a property manager, you need a lender. We're going to help you. And these are all vetted people. We don't make a dime off of any kind of referrals. There's no referral money or any of those kind of things. It's just like, we want our clients to close out a property with the best in the industry here in Kansas City.
Yeah. And that's just such a great service. I've never seen that roped into one group here. And so, talking about the 1031 exchange in general, do you mind just kind of laying out for the audience kind of what are the challenges that some of your clients face being in a 1031? I think everyone pretty well understands what it is, but I know there's the deadline side of things. But talk through some of the challenges that your company has really helped mitigate for these people and the things they otherwise have to be balancing on their own.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the big thing, you hit the nail on the head, right? The deadline. Oh my gosh. I have 45 days from the date I sell this property. It's like, holy cow. At first, it sounds like that's an eternity. And then you start looking at the calendar. I mean, the calendar turns pretty quick. And so the number one priority we have is we have a promise that we put to people who want to be, who we want as clients. And that is, we will put at least 3 properties in front of you that you can identify for your 1031 exchange. And that is something that I think helps get a lot of people comfortable right away. Now, we all know that not every property is going to check every single box for every investor, but we try to also get them comfortable in that, hey, look, it's okay to buy a non-perfect property because you're still going to be making money and you're still saving all that money on the taxes. You're deferring those to a later time. So that 45-day window, we really get people comfortable. We put a lot of product in front of them. And so we help them get comfortable to know that we're there for them, right? A listing agent is not really there for them. They're there for the seller. Sure, they want to sell product, but we're there for them. And so we have a continual pipeline of properties and evaluating we're putting in front of them. We're introducing them directly to lenders. We're jumping on 3-way calls with insurance or other providers. And so it's all about just getting them comfortable in those 45 days. And then when we get down to it, we really want to focus on negotiating for them. A lot of people, even before their down lake property closes, we start the negotiating process with the seller to say, hey, look, I've got a 1031 exchange client coming. They're going to be on deadline here. Let's get your property sold to them at a great price. And so we start negotiating on their behalf as early as we can within the process. And, of course, we've got attorney recommendations if it's a complicated kind of transaction. But those are the big issues that I think 1031 exchange people don't really realize until they're into the deadline period, right? Is, oh my gosh, I'm stressed out. So we alleviate all that stress and we're there on their team, which I think is unique.
That's incredible. And I've worked with a lot of 1031 investors who have come into some of our deals as Quattro, and there's a legal way we can do that. You cannot come into an LLC. Please don't construe it that way. But, to our listeners, but 0% of the time were they before day 40 when they approach me looking for, something to identify as the replacement property or the up leg property, I guess is the way you would put it, opposite of down leg. So it is absolutely a challenge. And to reiterate the dates, I mean, you have your 45-day identification period. And I think the standard way for a forward 1031 is you have 45 days to identify 3 properties and you must close on one of them, at least one of them, by the end of your 180-day period. So you have a total 180-day period to identify and close on a project. And for anyone who has watched us do projects, especially if you're dealing with something that is above 3 or 4 million in value, those things usually take about 3 months to get done anyway. So you're kind of eating up half your time after you have identified, plus your 45, your best case scenario at 135, if you're on top of it, so it's
That's exactly right.
It's a bit of a wall we're all up against. But anyway, so Alex, I also love to hear, you see people doing 1031 exchanges all the time. Would you mind speaking a little bit to just kind of taking it back to the 10,000 foot level? What is the power of the 1031 exchange over just blowing it up and paying taxes? I mean, I'm sure you've seen a lot of different use cases in this world.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was actually just posting on LinkedIn today the power of the return on equity metric, which is a very common metric used when businesses are looking at their own business equity, nothing related to real estate. But when you translate that to real estate, the return on equity metric is huge. If you have I'm going to make this up, you've got a single family home in Oakland, California that's worth $750,000. This is called $1 million for easy math. And you don't owe but maybe half that, so $500,000. you have $500,000 of unused cash just sitting right in there. And you might be cash flowing, let's call it, I don't know, $1,200 a month or something. And so maybe you're at $10,000, $15,000 a month on cash flow from that property. Sounds kind of interesting, but if you were to sell that and use that whole $1 million, because it's worth $1 million, and you've got your $500,000 in equity, so you've got your whole $500,000, you can go out to a place like Kansas City and use that as a 25% down payment, buy something for $2 million, and now you're cash flowing, somewhere around $30,000 a year. So I mean, you go from let's even round up $15,000, and now you're doing the $30,000 in free cash flow. To me, that is the power of the 1031 exchange, all because you pay no capital gains tax on that additional value you've created through forced appreciation, paying down your principal and your initial investment. So those are like the best 1031 exchange examples. As you take your, duplex, fourplex, fiveplex, sixplex, and exchange that into a much larger property using full leverage.
Yes, couldn't have said it better myself. And to stack on what you said there, right? When you really hit the point of, let's say you're cash flowing $5,000 a month, and you're sitting on 5,000 in untapped equity, right? What you have to think about is, and one of my mentors told me this, and it stuck with me. All right, either there's a drum roll there, or that was just a really awkward silence. We'll see how good they are. But my point is, if you don't sell a property, you buy it all over again in that moment. And so the point is, if you have 500,000 of untapped equity, maybe you only put 20 grand in it when you bought it, let's say. But if you look at an opportunity to sell and you say no, and you instead choose to hold that property, maybe because you're scared of taxes or something like that, well, then you just invested $520 into that building, if you think about it that way, because that cash that is sitting there in equity is now only accruing the little bit amount of cash flow that you're getting off that one unit. So to Alex's point, I confused you with your partner there for a second. To Alex's point, it's a beautiful thing, because you now get to take taxes out of the equation and really leapfrog with your equity the cash flow you could bring in. So, man, I can't get excited enough about the company you guys have put together. I wish there were more like you. So what is let me give you a couple of plugs real quick, because y'all are operating in the Kansas City market. I'm an investor. I love Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama. I don't know Kansas. Why would I go to Kansas City?
Great question. It really is a great question. I think any city is going to have similar questions, right? And the thing about Kansas City that is great about it is it's a landlord-friendly market. So we don't have any rent control legislation in place. We don't have any real eviction, laws where you can't evict for certain things. It's pretty much
California peeps. I hope you're listening.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't pay your rent, you can be evicted. Right? If you don't follow the rules of your lease, you can be evicted. And you can immediately take any property you purchase. Let's say it's got 100 units in it, and 50 of them are at $300 under market rent. As soon as their lease comes up, you can immediately take those to market rent. Now, whether or not the tenant stays, that's their decision. But you have all these different landlord-friendly opportunities. The other thing is, low property taxes, right? So historically pretty low. On the Missouri side, they're kind of hard to predict on what they'll go up to, depending on the county. Kansas side is easier to predict, a little bit higher taxes, but still relatively low compared to a lot of markets, especially the coastal and southern markets. And then the other piece you have is there's, of course, growth within the metro. It's the largest metro. Well, it's not the largest metro in Missouri, because you have Kansas City, which is Kansas and Missouri. And then you have just down the road St. Louis. But it is the largest metro kind of in the region, so to speak. The other towns that are kind of close by are Omaha, Des Moines, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Wichita, all these kind of smaller towns. Well, this is the largest here in this area. And it's a growing population where we're a master of none, but we have a little of everything. So we've got some tech, we've got a lot of animal science, we've got, of course, a lot of healthcare with major regional hospitals here. We've got, a growing progressive downtown with the streetcar line extension, with hopefully, fingers crossed, the Royal Stadium coming in downtown. We got some great schools on the Kansas side, and some places on the Missouri side have some great schools. So all those things make Kansas City an interesting place and a great place to invest in. We've seen some pretty dang good appreciation, 20% per year kind of stuff, depending on where you're buying, maybe even 40% if you get the right deal. So it's a growing population. The other thing I think is key, I was talking to an investor in the Cincinnati market, and in the Cincinnati market, they actually have kind of an issue where certain places are harder to pinpoint where to invest. But in Kansas City, you can almost throw a dart and get a pretty good investment. Now, you don't want to overpay for anything, but all areas, all submarkets are pretty dang good here in the market.
Yeah, that's all some really good stuff there. So, I mean, the biggest thing I hear is landlord friendly, predictable property taxes. Because I'm telling you, and Quattro Capital does deals all over the country, and there are some areas where we literally have to enlist an employee to follow or not an employee, but a property tax consultant to properly battle the tax situation every blessed year. And so just not having to deal with that in the Kansas City, side of things, I guess, depending if you're in Missouri or Kansas side. And wow, yeah, totally get it. Plus, it's a pretty stable growth market as well. Rent control is not there. You have lower rents as well than the median average. So you kind of have a lot of headway before you start to get in trouble with rent growth. So fantastic. Well, Alex, I would love to stay and talk all day, but I've got to get to a couple of questions that we ask everyone on the show. Are you ready?
Do it. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Just testing out the sound effects there. We'll see if that worked or not.
Worked.
All right. It worked. Good. Very good, guys. Okay. So what is your superpower in your business?
Superpower is what I touched on more towards the beginning, right? Which is the persistent nature. And there's a lot of people that are kind of brash and harsh with it. And some people are maybe too nice with it to be where you could just kind of glance and process over them. So my superpower is being persistent, but in a convincing way. And I've had some really good success with that. It's a lot of nudges and a lot of touching bases and how we doings, and that has seemed to really help propel this business.
I love that. And we've heard a lot of really cool ways how you have just been awesome and been a great entrepreneur and created value for others. But man, tell me your biggest mistake. What's your biggest lesson in life or business, and what did you learn from it?
We all have mistakes, and I think the biggest mistake I've made was in real estate, and I put a lot of eggs in maybe only one or half a basket, and that was in the Airbnb game back in 2019 or so. And I fell into just really kind of being oversold by somebody who had some great numbers and some great experiences. I was pretty desperate, I would say, to leave my other job. And I thought it was my ticket to get out of it. And as we all know, in real estate, it's not a get rich quick business. It's a build wealth over time business. And it took that mistake to really understand that. And the takeaway from that is, don't reach for something that isn't there just because you're desperate, and know that you're being desperate in that moment. That's hard to do, but I learned from my mistake and glad I did it.
That's a deep one. Don't reach for something that isn't there, but I totally get that. And I get, wanting to get there quicker, right? That's a tough lesson to learn. All right. And you have a YouTube channel where we can learn a little bit more about your take on real estate. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we have a YouTube channel that I actually have covered every single submarket of Kansas City, just in general, right? Like, hey, look, this is why this one's good. This is why this one's bad. This is an A. This is a B. This is a C. And I also do every single week a multifamily minute here in Kansas City, where I cover every single opportunity that's coming on the market, either through MLS or CoStar. And then I also cover our off-market deals as well. And so that YouTube channel is a good place if you just want to be in touch with the Kansas City market on the multifamily side. Definitely reach out, or definitely take a look at our YouTube channel with Xchange CRE under the YouTube brand, and you'll definitely find me.
Fantastic. And last question, Alex. One of Quattro's 4 pillars is philanthropy, And so what I love to do is to invite individuals who have some philanthropic venture to mention it on the show. A lot of times our guests, our listeners rather, will contribute on behalf of our guests. So what would be your philanthropic venture that you guys focus on?
Yeah, right now I think we've got a couple. And so I'll just touch on the main one I'm focused on. That's Habitat for Humanity Restore. And I don't know if you have one in your area, but it's a great resource. If you donate tools, you donate appliances, you donate building products that are left over from your projects directly to those stores, they do an amazing job of getting those to the right place, or even selling them to people that need those appliances or tools. And all that goes to help their mission, which is to continue to build better homes for people in need. And it's just an amazing organization. It's huge. I know it's large, but it does continue to help home ownership in and throughout the world, but obviously in the U.S. even too.
That is fantastic. I really love that every one of our listeners gets jazzed up about this stuff. And we've actually had a lot of feedback from our guests of, oh my gosh, how much money came in for this after. So, and Habitat is just a great philanthropy. It helps with everything from, really, I've been more involved with the housing side of it. It's just a fantastic group of people. But all right, Alex. Well, one more question. How best can we get in touch with you, especially should some of our listeners want to enlist your services and work with you on their next 1031 exchange?
Yeah. So great way, of course, is to email me directly, alex@xchangecre.com. And then also hit me up on LinkedIn. I love hanging out on LinkedIn, posting and interacting with people. And then my website, www.xchangecre.com. And just love to hear from your listeners and see how I can help out.
All right. And folks, as always, scroll right down in whatever media player that you're using, and this will be right there in the show notes, so no worries. And from that, Alex, it's been fun. I think it's time to go on to the next thing, yeah?
Let's do it, man. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone. This has been another episode of the Real Estate Runway Podcast. Signing off for now.
We hope this episode was insightful and brought value to your day. If so, please be awesome and leave us a 5-star review. Find out how Team Quattro can help you at thequattroway.com. Until next time, this is the Real Estate Runway Podcast.